banana. Yep, count them. It's always an ends. Hello, welcome to Board Game Barrister, our local game shop in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm Andy, and I'm here with Gordon, Glenn, and Renee, and today we're talking Things in Rings by Allplay, designed by Peter Hayward. It is a game where one of us is going to be the knower, who knows things about all three of these rings in our Venn diagram. The knower is going to put things in those rings based on what each of them means, and the rest of us are going to try to figure those out. Welcome to Things in Rings, a game where we've got 3 rings on the table made of these laces here, all kind of set up in a Venn diagram, and the format of this game is that one player at the table knows certain qualities about what cards are allowed to live in these rings. That player is fittingly enough called the knower. Everybody else at the table, who are called the finders, are going to try to figure out what those qualities are based on what's getting put in these rings. So to start us off, our knower is going to draw 3 cards, one for each different ring on the table. We've got a word ring, an attribute ring, and a context ring. That word card has to do with the word itself on the card, so it's going to have to do with the spelling or the letters that are in that word or even the pronunciation sometimes. And our word category for this round happens to be starts with a vowel or Y. Attribute's going to have to do with the physical properties of the item itself. So the examples it gives here is it's made of metal or it has moving parts, things like that. Our attribute quality for this round is often has spots or stripes. And last is the context, which we found to be the trickiest one. This kind of has to do with where you might find these things or how you might use them. In this case, our context quality is single use. Alright, and once our knower has their qualities for each of the 3 rings, we're going to deal 5 cards to every player, the knower included, and our knower is going to start us off by looking at their cards and picking 3 that they want to put where they belong among those rings. So we can put this out in our context ring to say that a match is a clear indicator of whatever this quality is. It starts with a vowel and often has spots or stripes. I don't think you can argue against that point, right? So that's both the starts with a vowel word quality and spots or stripes attribute quality. We're going to put that in the section between those 2. The one other thing you can do to try to help the other players out as the knower is to put things in the none section over here. So to be able to say that a key doesn't fit any of these categories might start to help players make some really good eliminations for how they're thinking about them. Let's do that. Let's put the key in none. And so now we hit the real meat of each round, which is where the finder players start to try to get rid of the cards in their hands by placing them out on the table. On each player's turn, they're going to pick a card from their hand and they're going to play it face up out into one of these sections of rings. And there's 2 different things that can happen depending on whether they correctly place that card or incorrectly place that card. Let's say a player saw underwear out here and thought to themselves, well, I've got headphones, so maybe this category has something to do with things you wear. If they try to put their headphones down in attribute, then the knower is going to look at where they've put that and they're going to judge whether or not that's accurate. Now, headphones I wouldn't say normally often have spots or stripes. The ones in this picture certainly don't. So this is going to be incorrect, and the knower is actually going to take that card and put it where it does belong. It doesn't begin with a vowel, they're not single-time use, and we've already said they don't have spots or stripes, so headphones are actually going to go out to none, and that player is considered to have made an incorrect guess, which means they're going to replace the card they put out with a new one off the top of the deck into their hand. In another instance, a player might look at the match over here and say, oh great, I've got incense, and I wonder if this context has something to do with burning or fire or something like that. So if they attempted to put this over here, then the knower would look at that, and in this case they would have to correct the player again by taking that card and placing it instead between these 2 rings, because incense is both single use and starts with a vowel. And then that player would also attempt to learn something from that incorrect play, but they would also have to replace their card. Now eventually players are going to start playing cards that are correctly out on the board. If somebody played this pie out here just to test their luck, well, a pie is pretty arguably single use, I'm happy with that. And then spots or stripes, I'd say pies often have things you could consider spots or stripes. And one thing you can do in this game if you're not so sure is you can refer to the picture itself, and this is definitely a latticed pie. I'm happy to call those stripes. So I'm going to leave pie there and tell that player correct. And when you get a correct guess, you get to continue to play cards from your hand out into the rings until you get one wrong. So you could get rid of multiple cards in one turn. Now those are the basics of gameplay. Players are playing cards out into the rings. We're slowly gaining more information so that we can start to make more educated guesses about where our future cards can go. And this is kind of a split in the road between the 2 ways you can play this game. The rulebook begins with the competitive rules, and in the competitive rules, everybody at the table is competing to be the first player to empty their hand. So as soon as somebody has correctly played their 5th and final card, the round ends, and then we get to talk about which rings were which and get some bragging rights if we were able to figure it out. But then we played the cooperative mode, which is at the back of the rulebook. In the cooperative mode puts everybody at the table on one team, the knower included. In this mode, the knower is going to start the game with 10 cards total, and they're going to put one card out for each player at the table to begin the game. The cards left in the knower's hand after they've put out those initial cards is the number of rounds total we have to try to empty all of the finder's hands together. So in this mode, the finders are allowed to talk among themselves about the categories they're seeing, not about the cards in their hand, but about what they think the different rings might mean. The rules for playing cards and getting rid of them or incorrectly playing cards and having to redraw all stay exactly the same. But the one other cool thing in the cooperative mode is that whenever we come back around to the knower's turn, rather than skipping over them like you do in the competitive mode, the knower gets to play one more card from their hand on each of their turns to try to give more information to the rest of the players at the table. And that's why the cards in their hand matter so much, is because if they ever play their final card, that triggers our final round of guesses where we all have to try to empty our hands that round or we all lose together. Alright, that's all you need to know about how to play. Let's hop into our discussion. This game has a mechanism that we love from like parlor games even, where like you're naming things that all share some quality, and everybody else is trying to figure out why they can or can't bring along different things, and this game is that, but gamified and Venn diagramified. So there's 3 different categories, and we're trying to figure out why we can or can't bring things into each of those different categories, and it's this really fun thing where you start to go, what's similar about all these things? And as soon as you start figuring out one similarity, you go, it can't be that because this isn't in this one, and I know that that's also in that category. So you're doing a lot of kind of fun little logic problems, but also just thinking about things in fun ways and how they connect to each other. And I really like that as a mental exercise.
That method of gameplay is, again, one of my favorites, and I've been looking for that for a long time. And I felt that either the 2-player version, which we didn't play, but I kind of intuit that the 2-player version would be really good, but the cooperative version really did that. Yeah. And I'm actually a little sad that they put the cooperative version as some alternate rules, because in my opinion, this is a cooperative game. That mental space of being in, of figuring out, and then talking with everybody to turn that into a group game, that was so fun. Yep. I would play that all the time. The co-op version also, I didn't get to be the knower in the competitive version, but it seemed to me like being the knower in the co-op version was way more fun than being the knower in the competitive version.
Try the no-O's theory.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Go again.
Yes. All right. Obviously, royalty wears it. And made of gold. So we're cooking. Let's get it.
Having played this with 4 players in both competitive and cooperative modes, I think the 20-ish minutes that they recommend for the playtime is pretty accurate, but it could really go either way. Some games, especially competitively, will go a bit shorter. The cooperative mode could certainly easily go a bit longer.
I will add one simple thing, in that it's a simple thing, but I think it's a useful thing they put in here is they added these. So that way I can put this down and I can say...
We didn't even look at the other side of these.
Yes.
So it's got everything.
What it means, but also
Yeah.
it's just so that way you're not having to remember and go, wait, what was yellow again? It says right there, this is where
Examples:
that is attribute.
contains metal, has moving parts.
Yeah. Yeah. Because how is a hat different from a crown? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
That's part of
And
why
how
I
is
chose
a crown
it.
different from grass?
And the art is really engaging as well. It's not just, oh, this has this feature so it can live there. You're gonna feel like you're in a Dr. Seuss book the entire time you're playing this. Every single thing in here is super evocative of the Seuss-style art, and you could see it living on any single page of any Dr. Seuss book.
One of the modifications that we would make, at least I would make if I was going to play this competitively, is I would give the knower multiple rules to choose from. I would consider giving an easy, medium, and hard for each of the 3 categories, and then let them pick the ones that that seem interesting to them, so that when they are giving their initial set of clues, they're doing that from a position of, oh, these are things that I chose, and it gives the knower one extra bit of decision making because they're going to have none for the rest of the game, and they can try to make sure that they're crafting a fun experience for the rest.
All right, that does it for Things in Rings. Thanks so much for watching. We had a really fun time with this one, especially when we played it cooperatively and we got to work together. As always, hit that like button, leave a comment. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. Subscribe so you get to see our new videos every week, and check out our online store. Things in Rings is in there. You can find that and a bunch of other cool games. For the time being, we're going to see you next time. Thanks for watching.